If you haven't checked out my YouTube channel is Engineer775. I started that just like for fun 3 years ago, and it was a way to communicate with friends and family. And so I never really thought about tying it in with our business, Practical Preppers, so that's why it's kind of disjointed. But I think some people have made that connection. But YouTube's been a lot of fun. I've met people from all over the world through YouTube. There's a lot of preppers, and I get people from Malaysia, Norway, Germany, asking me questions on YouTube, so it's a lot of fun. And also in the United States, I've been helping preppers in the Grand Tetons, Denver, made a few trips to Texas, Missouri, and wherever we go, it's just like being home with these folks are just great to be with. So I've been doing just a lot. We're still working with National Geographic. I'm about done with that because I've not made much headway with them. I've tried to convince them to do real prepper shows and documentaries on how to do things, but that's been a struggle. If you've seen the shows, you know what I'm talking about. And but I hope that people still have an objective mind. I learn a lot from every prepper that I ever get to go to their site. I learn a lot with this. Hold on, I didn't even get this thing up here yet. I'm an engineer, but technically challenged today. Cancel. Are we up? Oh, okay, there we go. All right. Yeah, so just trying a bunch of new things with our website. We did a mobile app. I was trying to get some of the young crowd. You see people that are constant, all they do is walk around with their cell phones or smartphones, the younger generation. So we made a little mobile app to kind of introduce them to the ideas of preparedness, that they need water, that they need some way to stay clean, sanitation, water, communication, energy. And so we did a little mobile app that you can download for free on your smartphone and just kind of say, hey, maybe I need to do this, and start thinking about prepping. So that's been a lot of fun to get the word out that way. So just been extremely busy doing consultations, digging ditches, putting in water systems. But it's very rewarding to me. I've been doing this as a hobby for over 20 years. And now, just in the last couple of years, people got real serious about being able to live off the grid. So, and again, every time I get to go to a prepper's location, a site, or a group site, I learn so much. There's always a little tip I pick up, and a lot of those videos that you see on YouTube, I've learned from somebody else. So I'm very fortunate to be able to go and visit and say, wow, I never thought of that, or that works great for your location. I know somebody else that could really use this. So that's been a great thing for me. Okay, we're going to talk about water and energy, and I believe, as Richard said, there's going to be a Q&A. I don't think we'll have time unless I go really fast through my 852 slides that will be done. No, I don't have that many. So water, this is kind of my passion. I'm just a water geek, a water nerd. Any type of water source we're going to talk about, from springs to creeks, ponds, wells, rain catchment, and we're very fortunate on the East Coast. We have a lot of water. We have a ton of water. I get calls from people like the lady from Las Vegas. I mean, their water starts at 450 foot down, and they're desperate because when they lose power, they're really in trouble there, and there's no way to get the water out of the ground. And so we're very, very fortunate, but we still get complacent and not think about how to get that water, keep it potable, how to be able to deliver it in an off-grid fashion, either mechanically or using solar, using generators, or what have you. So water is very, very important. The way I like to look at water is in three phases, 3 ways. It's very important, even if you live next to that creek, even if you have a well, it's very important, I believe, to have stored water in your dwelling place or close to it. That's actually stored in containers, because anything and everything can fail. Mechanically, people can sabotage your solar panels, your equipment, cut wires. And having enough water stored to get you through a period of time, whatever you're prepping for, I just tell people, pick a period of time. I don't care if it's 3 weeks or 3 years. That's your goal. Pick that period of time, and then begin to find out what I need to do to be a balanced prepper. I got a lot of people I meet, they've got an arsenal and they could fight a war, but they've got no water. And they've got all this stuff, or they've got 3 or 4 years worth of food, but no way to cook it, no way to rehydrate it. And so it's very important. Whatever you're doing, pick a period of time. If it's a year, that's what we kind of prep for. A year, if we're beyond that, great. We think once you hit a certain level, that you're pretty well sustainable on most things. So stored water is extremely important. I've got every water source developed on my property: springs, creeks, ponds, multiple wells. And I still have water in 2-liter soda bottles in my basement. I still have containers of water around the house. Because you don't want to, in a grid down or a very stressful time, you don't want to have to you do not want to have to think about what I'm going to share with you today. You don't want to have to think about your water. You don't want to have to think about your power. You might have to think about what Skinny Medic just talked about. Somebody's injured and I've got to deal with that. I don't want to be stressed out about I don't have potable water, or I don't have water that is sterile, that I can actually do a minor surgery with. So you want to have the things that I'm boring. I have boring infrastructure things, water and power, but those can't be overlooked. They need to be taken care of, and I think they're priority one, because you're going to be spending your time on security and other things so these things need to be taken care of. So storage, there's all different types of storage containers. I'm not going to tell you how to do this, but everybody today is hydrated. They receive water, whether it's from a municipal water system, city water system, a community well, your own well, rain off your roof, you get water to you. Do you have enough stored? And you need at least a gallon per person per day. And so we're always, at least have 3 months. If you could do it, have 3 months worth of water on hand stored. And a lot of different containers. A lot of people say, what about the BPA and leaching and all that? And I'll just say this because I know I'm going to get questions about it. It's like, those are the least of your worries in a grid down situation. Leaching from BPA coming out of plastic, you're not going to be worried about that. You're not going to be worried about a little bit of asphalt coming off, shingle coming apart off your roof and get into your rain catchment system. That is going to be the least of your worries. You want to be able to survive. You want to be able to take care of your family. If you can deal with all those things ahead of time, that's fine, but those are real small items when it comes to staying alive. There's a lot of things you can do. Even if you're on city water, people say, well, I don't live in the country. I don't have a way to store water. You can take, I like these, you have a pointer? Who does? These doorway tanks. There's 400 gallons in a potable water tank that you can fit through any door. Just have it in your basement, have it in the house somewhere. Again, it's heavy, be careful. But then something that you can change out every 6 months. Even if on city water, there's people that are urban preppers that will do better than people that live in Western North Carolina, because they have got their water and their food, their medical, they're already set. The whole, the country boy can't survive thing is not going to be, it wasn't true in the Depression so much as, wildlife and things were just decimated really fast because everybody's going to think, and you do not want to be in that mindset where you have to leave your house and your children, your wife, to go find food. So you want to have everything, your water, your food, in place. Buried tanks, great. A lot of people worried about security. So, and all of this, and I kind of present a system. I'm not just going to talk about water. There's security aspects to water. There's security aspects to power. There's noise discipline, light discipline. There's all these things. So it all becomes a system approach for me when I get to share it with folks. Just a couple of people that I've met. Some folks in Texas dealing with drought, dealing with power outages, tornadoes, and I went and visited them, and they were able to get through 120 days with just their rain catchment system in a very dry environment because they had enough water. So they caught water off of every structure on their property, and they lived off of their rain catchment for those several months, for 4 months. And then I had other people that, you have everyday failures. The ants get into the control box and the capacitor on my well pump, and it fried it, and they were like, I had put a hand pump on their well, and it's like, we're just going to pretend we're off grid. So they lived the way they normally did, and they said, this is killing us. We're not used to this. And I said, well, what are you doing? Did you change your lifestyle at all? No. I said, how many times you flush the toilet? 15 in less than 2 days, a day and a half. I said, you can't do that. I mean, you're going to burn up all your food with all the calories out there pumping that handle to get water. So people, you do have to adjust and think about where, possibility. It's good to test. I tell everybody, and I meet a lot of people that have a lot of stuff in boxes on shelves. They got a lot of gear, but they don't know how to use it. So I just kind of, probably preaching to the choir here, but You need to test that solar generator. You need to test that hand pump. Can it perform the way it was supposed to, or where you think it is going to perform? So it's very important. So water sources. Let's talk about the water sources, just so I know what kind of audience. How many people have wells in the crowd? All right, my kind of people. That's kind of a weird statement, isn't it? My kind of people, because you have a well. But the majority of you have wells, and that's great. And what I love about wells, it's your water supply. You can control it. You can secure it. And for the most part, it's very hard to contaminate a commercial well, even some of the board wells. How many people have the old-style board wells? A couple, yeah. And very few have artesian. I know you do. I begged that gentleman to let me put a ram pump on his artesian well. They're very hard to find a positive pressure. Once you drill a hole in the water, it's just shooting out of it and pressurized. And so he wouldn't let me even do it for free, I don't think. No, just kidding. But you can actually run artesian well off a hydraulic ram and pressurize your home. It's a neat thing, very, very rare. But anyway, wells. So there are a lot of solutions for wells. We'll talk about springs. To me, the best source of water is mountain spring water, gravity fed to your location. Anybody have that? Wow, awesome. That's the best. No electricity required. Minimal maintenance on your spring boxes. And if you haven't, maybe you have an old school spring box. I like the two-phase. If you've seen my videos, those spring boxes work good. Carolina Readiness is over here. A lot of what I get in terms of storage containers, tanks, spring boxes, I get from Stanley and Kelly at Carolina Water Tanks, because they're good products and they work. The spring boxes are awesome. Rain catchment systems, and I encourage, some of you that have wells also have springs, and I encourage you also to do rain catchment, because that can just be a great backup water source for your gardening, for flushing toilets, whatever. Streams, ponds, lakes. I mean, Western North Carolina. How many people are here in Western North Carolina? All right, so most folks. So you have a lot of water. It's just, what do I do with it? What's the most efficient use of this water? How do I make it potable? What should I do with my water source? And that's what we'll cover today. And so we'll start with wells. And what I like to do is, if you live on a well now, you have a submersible pump, or you might have a jet pump. And what I don't like to interfere with that. I like to go in parallel with that. Most people have a 6 1/4 inch well casing, and you can put multiple pumps. I've put 5 pumps in one well. That's a little extreme, but that's just me. You can put multiple pumps in the well, because you're typically running 1 or 1 1/4 inch pipe plumbing down to your pump, and you can set these pumps at different heights in your well. You usually have a large column, tall column of water in your well, so you can, while the grid is working, use it. It's a great storage device. It's relatively cheap. If you don't think it is, go try to make your own power, with solar or generators or fuel. It's very expensive when you do it by yourself. So the grid system I leave alone, but then you can add an off-grid system. And the beauty of Western North Carolina, I find, when I show up at somebody's house, I'm just instantly, the first thing I do is look for elevation change. Because I'm looking for a way to put the water source that you have, which in most cases is going to be below your home. It's obviously way down in a well. It might be way down in a valley. How do I get that water to the top of your property? And how do I get it there without any batteries or any storage devices? So it's much cheaper to store water than it is electricity. So you want to have, basically you trade in batteries and electricity for a tank of water placed at the top of your location. And then you use the sun to lift and gravity to deliver. I've been doing it for about 13 years now, and I deliver water to my cows and my gardens, gravity fed. Sun lifts it and gravity delivers it in about 6,500 feet of PVC now. My wife says I'm a little obsessed with PVC. But I can get water anywhere and everywhere, and so it allows me to bring water to my animals, bring it to my garden, bring it to the house. And I'm doing it right now just as a test with a 2-gallon-a-minute solar pump, and it supplies enough water to take care of all my animals, about 25 cows, and my acre of garden, and my family. So it's because you're pumping slow and steady, and whenever the sun hits that panel, it's putting it up there, no batteries. So that's kind of what that picture is showing over here. You have solar, a submersible pump in the well, and you pump up to your tank, and then you can distribute that water anywhere. You can also tie it in with your municipal water system. You can tie it in with city water systems. You can tie it in with your community well, just as long as it's backflow prevented and check valved. And what I like to do is basically copy what you're getting for pressure at your shower head at the second floor or third floor of your home, and just design it so that you get the right amount of solar for that pump and your water needs, how many gallons a minute you need, and then size the tanks correctly so that you can go forever. Basically, I've been pretty much running, pumping off-grid water for about 12 years, and it just works. Most people think of solar, they think put solar on the roof, run in their homes, but this is the most efficient use of solar that there is. Most people don't talk about it. I finally found that you can get the same tax credit for solar water pumping if you're using it for your home, because you are making electricity and using the sun, and you're using it for your home use. So you can get all the, especially North Carolina, 30% federal tax credit, 35% North Carolina personal tax credit. So it makes a huge difference if you can take advantage of the tax credit on the water system. But water systems have been overlooked by IRS and federal for whatever reason. It's government. I don't have to say anymore. Moving on. So wells. The other thing is, some people start with, I just want, if the grid goes down, I want to be able to get through that ice storm for 3, 4 days, maybe 10 days, whatever it is. I want to be able to get through. So we've put a lot of these in. I put 2 in Thursday, one in Whittier and one down in Polk County, and they're just a simple mechanical device to lift water out of a well, and up to 350-foot static water level. That's 350 feet down to the water. I've never encountered anybody over. I've got some close in Bryson City. They have some for whatever reason, in that area. But most people average about 60 to 80. But getting water out at 300 is doable. And again, but it's with a hand pump. It shares the well casing with your existing pump, goes in parallel. And you can also pressurize your bladder tanks so that you can actually take a shower. So you just send all your kids out there, let them line up next to that, and you get to take a shower and let them pump that handle. Or hire a local neighbor kid or somebody to come out there and pump. But it is some effort you're doing. You will really appreciate your power company after you live off grid for a couple weeks. And if you had to hand pump your water. But the bottom line is you have water. You adjust your lifestyle. Use your rain catchment for laundry and other things, but use the hand pump to stay alive and not have to get the water out. The difficult thing with a top discharge, most all of your wells in the all in the southeast are top discharge. So your pump, your wiring, your plumbing, everything's hanging off of that well seal. People say, I'm just gonna pull that off and I'll put a bucket and a string down there and get water. That's a lot easier said than done. It took me an hour and a half to get the well seal out of the well the other day. It was just corroded and it was a nightmare to get it out of there. Plus, people say, I'm just gonna hook my truck up to it and pull it out. So what they do is they hook their truck up to it and they take off and they snap the top of the well off and their pump drops to the bottom of the well and then they're stuck and then they have all these obstructions in their well. So you don't do that. Please don't do that. So just think ahead. The rest of the country, in Tennessee as well, if some of you are from Tennessee, use a pitless adapter, and I think some of North Carolina's made that. It was illegal, now it's legal again, to actually come up the casing and exit the side of your well under the frost line, under the freezing line. And that way you can just open the cap, feed a baler bucket down, and pull up water. But most of your wells you cannot do that. So that's why this makes a great solution for getting water out of your well. You can add motors to it, and if your well is shallow enough, let's talk about shallow well solutions. Anybody have like a jet pump in their basement? They're pulling water out of their well, and they got a jet pump in their basement. Anybody here? There's one. Couple people. There's shallow well solutions. Wouldn't it be nice just go down into your basement, turn 2 valves and pump, and be able to take a shower? There's some shallow well pumps, and this one does a great job at that. You just plumb it in with your existing plumbing. This is definitely a colder climate where people are dealing with snow and ice. They don't want to go out there and try to hand pump. So you can go in your basement, turn a few valves, pump this pump back and forth, and pressurize your bladder tank to 40 psi. And so you have water without having to go outside. It's great for security, and you have water. You're just pulling it through your existing plumbing lines and pressurizing it. So if you have springs that are shallow, this could be a solution you haven't thought through yet. You might be able to actually hand pump and get a good pressurized water using a hand pump. Covered that. Now, booster pumps. So some people say, oh, I put my house at the top of the hill. I tell people, that might be your situation, but if you're looking for a piece of property, where did homesteaders build? They never built on the top of a hill. They didn't care about the view. They just wanted water. They wanted water for their animals, for the dairy, for whatever, so they usually would find a spring. Their house would be located based on where their water source was. So I still encourage people looking for a piece of property, do not, the realtors still don't understand this, even those that are preppers. They're like, oh, look at the view. Preppers don't want a view. I mean, that might be nice, but that is the worst. The worst water situations are those that I go to their locations where they have a nice view. You might have enough property where you can make up for it, but you want to be where the water is, down in the valley. The shallower the water, the better. The less effort, the less electricity, less everything to get the water out of the ground. Once you get the water out of the ground, there's a lot of solutions to boost, and that's all these are the little booster pumps, and some that will lift 1,000 feet straight up. These little pumps will lift 530 feet straight from where I'm standing up in the air. So the capabilities are amazing. So don't think that we can't get water to where you think we can't get water to, because it will. With the ram pumps, you can pump 500 feet straight in the air, and they'll deliver for miles and miles. The only difficulty with these type systems, you got a battery. We'll talk about batteries, but you have to appreciate and understand how batteries work, because most people destroy batteries. They just don't understand how they work. Spring development, again, I talked about this. There's the old school spring houses, and some that you can find are very nice, but there's a lot easier and cheaper ways to do it, and this is the Carolina water tank system I've been using for several years. It does a great job of delivering the water, filtering the water. It doesn't actually filter all silt. You can't really get all the silt. You're going to get you basically collect the water in this area, and you bring it off to your spring box, and each one of these captures a little more silt. Then you bring it to a tank or a pumping station, and that can capture more. But by the time you get it to the house, you're very, very little silt in the system. Rain catchment is always a good thing to consider. I built one, if you've seen my YouTube videos, where you have, I got a barn, metal roof, capture all the water. 1 inch of water gives me about 700 gallons of water. And there's multiple ways to filter the water on that. You have obviously gutter guard, depending on what type. You have pine needles or oak leaves. There's gutter guards that are specific to that. First flush diverters are great. It takes all the bird droppings, the pollen, the bugs that are in your gutters, flushes all that out. You don't want that in your water tank. That's called a first flush diverter. And then once that first flush diverter is done its job, it's rinsed the roof, then you take what's left into your rain tanks. Once you're in your rain tanks, you can actually extract the water out of that rain tank 4 inches below the top. That's the cleanest place in a rain barrel, is 4 inches. And I know I'm getting picky here. Some people just run their water in a 55-gallon pickle barrel or whatever, and they're done. But that water quality, you can do a lot. And this system's automatic. It resets itself. The diverters flush out, so next time it rains, you're ready to go to capture all that water. And it's good quality. And then you can take that contained water, use a pump it through a ceramic whole house water filter system, and you can live off. So an average family could live off a 1,200 square foot home roof square footage without a problem, and it would be potable. So rain catchment, don't discount rain catchment as a good solution for your water systems. Streams, and a lot of people, we have ponds, we've got lakes and streams, but they're not necessarily potable sources, and you don't want to trust that, because the bear that got shot died next to the creek, and you got a contamination, giardia, all the types of bacterial issues. We don't really have a viral load in North America. Very thankful for that, but water continues to be, I think, the next battleground after oil will be over water. It is in some places of the world right now. Definitely in the western part of our country, it's a battleground. But these are good for irrigation, your food resupply plans, but it's not worth it filtration-wise and the cost to make this water potable, in my opinion. But it can do a lot for you if you do use it. The ram pumps are kind of my favorite little perpetual motion machine. These are good in western North Carolina. I find a lot of sites that can use a ram pump where you have falling water and enough volume to run the pump itself, and then it'll pump and deliver the water. I pump with my ram pumps up to I got a redneck aquaponics system, I call it, my cattle tank, and I've got catfish up at the house because my son enjoys having catfish swimming around. And so I ram the pond water up to this tank, and then I overflow it back down to the pond, so it's just a closed loop system. So if you ever wanted to put a pond up above your house, you're like, I don't have water. Well, a ram pump can take that stream, can take that pond water, push it up there. It's mechanically, it's free, and then just return it back down. So that's how water was moved in the United States in the 1800s. If you're fortunate enough to have a spring and a stream, and the elevations work out, you can take your groundwater, your pond water, your stream water, run the ram, and it will pump the spring water up to your house and pressurize. So imagine taking a shower, no electricity involved, all done mechanically. It runs 24/7, but it takes a certain unique situation to do that. But a ram pump was made double acting in the late 1800s. And that's how, before electricity came out, that's how they were going to do city water systems. They take the ram pump, pump the water up to towers, and then gravity feed it to folks. So the rams are they're a lot of fun. I enjoy installing them. I've done a couple in Maggie Valley, and they can, and springs. If the spring is producing enough water, it's a great way to ram it back up the hill and then use it for your home. It just needs to be sized in the driest of times, drought conditions. Because a lot of people say, hey, come look at my springs, and there's no springs. It's all wet weather springs. You need the driest time, and then you size the ram for the worst case condition, because you want this thing pumping 24/7. So it's like the tortoise and the hare. This thing's, even if it's moving a quarter of a gallon a minute, it's going to pump 400 gallons a day for you, and it will never give up. Now, if you didn't filter right, and you might get a fish or a frog or something stuck in there, you need to take care of the inlet on it. But they're a neat device. There's mine. I did have this animated, but it's not here. So what I do is we'll look at the site, analyze it for elevation, measure flow, figure out what ram, what size storage tank. You know, some people are preparing for a group of people, and they've got 25 people, and they need, a certain amount of water. They've got goats, they have cows, they have rabbits, chickens. They've got 2 acres of garden going. They got aquaponics. They have a lot of water usage. So you have to size everything for what you're planning on doing. Another pump is a neat pump. It's a river pump, which will basically fight the stream. If it's deep enough and you got enough flow, we'll just use you just tether the cable across the creek, or you can put a pole in the middle of the creek or tether it off to a bridge. There's a lot of ways you can anchor these. But it's an old Archimedes screw, and it will pump water. This is how they used to pump water by hand out of the Nile. And it's just an updated looks like a little torpedo, but it picks up air, picks up water on every rotation, and builds pressure, and it'll lift water 80 feet. So you might have an application where you need 80 is about the max, where it'll actually lift water above the stream using that river pump. And then PTO pumps or some other mechanical devices. A lot of people have tractors or something that'll turn a PTO shaft. It takes very little fuel to pump a lot of water. I know this because I forgot about leaving my tractor on one day, and I left it running, pumping water to a tank, and it ran. I'm like, where's my tractor? And I left it running, and I went down there the next day, and it was still running. And I just had it idling along, pumping water, and I pumped probably 20,000 gallons of water. But it's a very efficient thing, is to get a little PTO pump, about $150. A little kit, maybe less than $200, you can move a lot of water. And the cool thing about these is we need to take into account firefighting. We're going to be our own fire department. And even now, even before that fire department gets to, some of your locations are very remote. Before they get there, I want to be able to fight my own fires. I want to at least minimize the damage to my home. And you need water storage to do that, or you have a way to pump out of your ponds or creeks or whatever. So that PTO pump can make that's a little PTO-driven firefighting. I mean, you can really move some water, high pressure, and fight a lot of fires that way. So don't leave out firefighting as part of your preps. And then we can get complicated. I'm getting into the bells and whistles now of developing off-grid systems that meet your needs, match the amount of water you need, and again, try to make them as automated as possible with minimal things that you would have to do in maintenance. I put all like automotive fuses in all my systems now. So if anything failed, I can go to any car and pull fuses out of it and stick them in my, if it blew a fuse, a lightning strike, you never know what's going to happen. So try to make them, where people can easily maintain them and work on them. Now let me talk with, the last thing on water is purification. And this is something, even though our water sources are typically good where we live, that you need to have water filters. I know a lot of people have bought Berkeys and made your own filters with 5-gallon buckets from Lowe's and use the monolithic.com or cheaper than dirt filters, and they're great. I'm not really endorsing any one filter here today because I've got them all and they all work extremely well. So, but I recommend having some sort of gravity-fed water filtration. And